Welcome, friends. This is Dr. Rahul Kamath here once again, and today we are going to be speaking about Neptune or Varuna. Okay, so this is a holistic exploration in um, astrology about the facets and what we know, what we understand about Neptune or Varuna. Now, what what we call Neptune in Western astrology is identical with Varuna in the Hindu tradition or in the Vedic tradition. Okay, so typically when we think about Neptune or when we look at traditional astrology or Vedic astrology, uh, we are typically not taught to look at the outer planets, like Neptune, Pluto, or Uranus. And it's like they are there because there is a setting in the software in which these planets, the positions, the degrees, the nakshatras which they occupy are there, but we are not really taught to look at them. We are not trained to think of them in terms of exaltation, debilitation, and all. But we all know, and any astrologer worth his or her salt will tell you that there is a role that they play. Sometimes when everything else fails, then you start looking at these planets. When you start looking at these so-called upagrahas also, correct? So therefore, we need to be studying these planets in detail, even in the context of a modern implementation of traditional Vedic astrology. Now, on the other hand, Neptune is very widely studied and widely written about in the Western astrological system. See, the Western system is also very well developed, except with the exception of um, you know, um, the 23 degrees 27 minutes, the difference in terms of the ephemeris that we follow. But other than that, the system is quite well developed, and in fact, understanding of the zodiac and understanding of the core properties of the planets is quite well advanced in the Western system. So we have to look at the Neptune in the Western system also. Now, so this is a more of an integrative approach. So with this brief introduction, let us plunge into the topic, and we will realize that there is much more to it than meets the eye. And typically, I think an integrative approach is now required. Okay, so with this background, let's get into the discussion in with gusto. Okay, so in front of you here is basically a sort of a bullet list of what we intend to cover over the next maybe 30-40 minutes, in which so we are going to be talking about different facets of the Neptunal Varuna. But firstly, really let us understand um, the etymology. Let us first start with Varuna. Let us see these, as I said, these are identical, but we need to understand them separately, how they have emerged in our scriptures and in the Rigvedic, uh, in the references. Now, Neptune is basically, sorry, Varuna. Now, the word Varuna comes from the Sanskrit. It has two parts. It is Vru and Una. Now, the Sanskrit root Vru has to do with encompassing, encircling, surrounding. Okay, so it is the same root as what is Vyom, for example. Vyom is the sky which surrounds us. So there is a root Vru which surrounds, and then there is a root Una which binds. So at a level of the meaning of the word, it means something which surrounds and binds. Binds what? That's the question, and we will. And Varuna has been referred extensively in the Rig Veda, and you find particularly in the hymn 7.86 of the Rig Veda that that Varun is basically a Adya Devata. Okay, so it has been referred to in accompaniment with other devatas. And if you remember the early Vedic devatas, we have Varun, we have Mitra, we have Indra, we have then later on Rudra. So these devatas are basically more of forces of nature which have been combined. So Varuna has been the lord of the oceans, the lord of the water element, things like that. So let's now look at the reference from the Rig Veda, and we will understand what I mean. And I think this is very important to before we proceed further with very detailed discussions. Now, in front of you, for example, you see a chart, you see a shloka. The source is Wikipedia. This is from the Rig Veda, and I'm just reading out. Basically, there is an English commentary below, and I will sort of annotate it with the Sanskrit part. Okay, so you are following, so that you follow me basically. Now it says here, you at your birth are Varuna, O Agni. So Tavam Agne Varuno Jayase. So Agni has been so Agni has been told, like, you at your birth are Varuna, O Agni. Yat Tavam Mitro Bhavasi Yat Samidha. When you are kindled, your mitra. Samidha means that which is kindled. Samidha is used in the pujas. So once you are kindled, once you are lit, once the fire element is introduced, then you become mitra. Okay, mitra is also another synonym or another name for the sun. It is one of the Surya Namaskars, in fact. Om Mitraya Namaha, for example, if you know. Then it says Tave Vishwe Sahasas Putra Devas. So it says, in you all the gods are centered, O son of strength. Okay. Tavam Indro Dashushe Martyaya. For those who are mortals, Martyaya means he who will be subject to death. For that person, for the mortal, your Indra. Okay, so likewise he goes on and on. It says Tavam Aryama Bhavasi Yatkani Nam. You are Aryaman. Okay, so the point here is that Varuna has been given a very very elevated position in the Rig Vedas, in the early, particularly the early Rigvedic cantos, and it is actually sort of a pan omnipotent kind of a Rigvedic deity, which can at times be Agni, be Mitra, be Indra, be Aryaman. Okay, so for example, and so therefore that tells us about the strength of Varuna in terms of the Vedic this thing. Now also, as I said earlier, it means now. So there is a certain holy law with which Varuna will bind you. So Varuna therefore is a devata of the highest order, and what really happened was that after the Amrut Manthan, and also after Indra killed Vrutra, you will recollect that Indra kills Vrutra, and that happened when uh, this is about 17,000 BC is when Indra killed Vrutra. As per the Vedic this thing, that was when sun, with the retrogression of the basically, the basic position of the sun at Aries, when it has retrogressed earlier in Jeshta Nakshatra, in towards the end of Scorpio. So if one really computes that with 72 years for 1 degree of retrogression, it comes to about 17,000 years, before, before Christ, or BC. Okay, so you find that uh, uh, Varun has this exalted sort of a status. Now, another symbol of Varun is Makar, or the Magar. It's the crocodile. So it's picturized as the crocodile and also with a noose. So I'll be coming to this a little later when I'm discussing the nakshatras which are influenced by Neptune or Varuna. Okay, but it does indicate also that the zodiac sign which is associated with crocodile is Capricorn. Okay, and if you recollect that the Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces in all there are 5 nakshatras. From the towards the end of Capricorn right up to the end of Pisces. So these are called Panchak nakshatras, and Varuna or Neptune has a connection with these nakshatras. And the noose. Okay, so we will come to the noose. The noose is particularly significant when it comes to one nakshatra which is called the Shatabhishak Nakshatra. Okay, so this is a brief etymology or a Rigvedic or a Hindu correlation of Varuna. Now let's go to Neptune. Okay, now as I said, Varuna is equal to Neptune, but Neptune is what it was known in Roman times. So the planet Neptune, okay, the Roman planet Neptune or the Roman god Neptune has come originally from the Greek mythology Poseidon. Now Poseidon was the god of sea and god of earthquakes and also horses. Okay, so Poseidon was a very powerful deity. Okay, and Poseidon has always been picturized with a trident. You know, the Aquaman kind of trident. So the trident and Poseidon. So and Poseidon had two brothers. One was basically Zeus and the other was Hades. So Zeus basically became Jupiter in Roman mythology later, and Hades became Pluto. Okay, but that's not part of this discussion today. But basically, the Greek god Poseidon, in when basically the Greek civilization was overtaken by the Roman civilization, the Greek god Poseidon became Neptunus. Neptunus, the Latin Neptunus, from which the word Neptune is derived. Now, the original, um, the the Latin root, the verb root is nef. Nef. The word nef means nebulous, which is vague, which is cloudy. Nef. And if you go back, if you trace the word etymology to the Proto-Indo-European root, it goes to nabhas, which is also a Sanskrit verb root. Nabhas. Now, nabha, we know nabha means clouds. Nabha means the sky. So therefore, again, you see the connection of Neptune to nabhas, and therefore the cloudy nature of Neptune, the sky aspect of Neptune, and also the original Poseidon property. It was also the god of seas, earthquakes, and horses. Now, horses here would indicate. Remember the Ashwini Kumar. Also there is the celestial horse. You know, basically, which is the one which sort of throws out vitality in the cosmos at the beginning of the nakshatra cycle from Ashwini. So the horse is a symbol of vitality, and therefore there is perhaps no coincidence here that the original signification of Poseidon was the lord of the god of seas, earthquakes, and horses here. Now, incidentally, there is one festival called Neptunalia, which is celebrated uh, in on the July of the 23rd in ancient Rome. And on this day, this is the driest day. This is the day when there is no water, and then they celebrate a festival Neptunalia for appeasement or propitiation of Neptune, Lord of the Waters. Okay, so this is a very brief etymology in terms of Roman and Greek correlates. You have the slide in front of you, and the second point we've just covered. Now, it's important to understand the the connection of Neptune with Jupiter and Venus. Now, Neptune as a planet, okay, so we call it planet in Western astrology, we call it Graha in sidereal or Vedic astrology. The own house of Neptune or Varun is basically Pisces. So, Neptune is basically in its own house in Pisces. Uh, there is a reference now, although for the outer planets, the exaltation and the debilitation points are not really known, but there is a reference in certain encyclopedias that the exaltation point for Neptune is Cancer. The exaltation is Neptune is exalted in Cancer. Now, this may not come as much of a surprise because Jupiter also is exalted in Cancer. So, Jupiter and so Neptune um, is like the Vedic overlord of the deity overlord of Jupiter. In a sense, it's a higher octave of Jupiter in that sense. So it is having all of Jupiterian qualities plus more. The plane in which Neptune operates is more of the extra worldly, the supra worldly plane, as opposed to Jupiter, which is so much on the material plane. You know, you have trees and plants and all kinds of life on Earth, which is also under the adhipatya of Jupiter, whereas Neptune is more in the higher planes. But again, you see the Jovian or the Jupiterian connection there very much. Neptune is also known to be um, a higher octave of Venus. Okay, because Venus is also exalted in Pisces, remember? And uh, so the most refined of the thought processes, the in terms of the Venus is a very feminine type of energy. It's a energy of, it's a receptacle energy. If you see later, and I'll be discussing the Neptune symbolism a little later, you'll find that the symbol of Neptune is something which is open to the universe. The trident is open up there. There is no closure. It's almost like a receptacle which is waiting below, but the tentacles, the influence is right going through and through in the cosmos. So therefore Jupiter uh, and Venus, the higher octaves in a sense, is Neptune. And there is one particular researcher in medical astrology by the name of Max Heindel who says that even uh, Neptune can be looked upon as a higher octave of Mercury, particularly, because Neptune affects Neptune or Varuna affects the nerves a lot in medical astrology. So mental illness or diseases of the nerves, chronic, there could be a Neptunian aspect to it, and if it is nerves, then it has to be, in a sense, something to do with Mercury. But we will take that with a little pinch of salt, certainly. Now, the next thing I want to really discuss here and spend some time on is um, the nakshatra part, or the in the Vedic astrology part. How does Varuna? Now we will call it Varuna because we are discussing the Vedic astrology side. So, what is the influence of Varuna? Now, this is very interesting. Now we will go from. So we will again use some of the symbolism which we've just learned some time ago. A symbol of Neptune or Varuna is Makar or Magar, crocodile. So which is the Makar Rashi. Now, if you see the Makar Rashi, the nakshatras in Makar are the first three padas of the last three padas of um, Uttarashadha. Okay, so pada 2, 3, 4 of Uttarashadha. Then you have the entire Shravan nakshatra, the four padas of Shravan, and then you have the pada 1 and 2, the two padas of Dhanishta. So that is Makar for you. Now, the nakshatra Shravan in the planetary lord is moon. It's a moon's nakshatra. Okay, Neptune is certainly concerned. So the Shravan nakshatra is a watery nakshatra in the sense of its planetary lord. Now the Rashi Makar has two aspects. It has a terrestrial aspect and it has an aquatic aspect, because the crocodile is kind of also terrestrial on land, also in water. So this is the water part of Makar, which is the Shravan nakshatra, and therefore under the Adhipatya indirectly of Varuna. Okay, and it makes sense intuitively because if the moon is affected, let's say if Varuna is in Shravana in the chart, if Neptune is in Shravan nakshatra in the chart in Capricorn, and if the moon is, let's say, badly afflicted, then chances, one would almost with certainty say that there will be some mental affliction, and which can be actually further aggravated by the presence of Varuna in a moon's nakshatra. So therefore, the influence of Varuna starts from Makar itself. Okay, then you have Dhanishta. After Dhanishta, Dhanishta is Mars, so Dhanishta is not so much connected with Varuna. After Dhanishta is Shatabhishak. Now, remember another symbology of Varuna, the symbology of a noose. Okay, a noose as in a rope, a noose, like a hangman's noose. Now, the nakshatra Shatabhishak is picturized, it's called 100 physicians to the gods. Shatabhishak. Shata means 100. Bhishak, the word Bhishak or comes from the Sanskrit word Bheshaj. Bheshaj is basically ritualistic healers. In the past, the physicians were also doing sacrifices in the ancient Vedic times. So therefore, Shatabhishek is basically 100 physician healers or 100 healers to the gods. And this is a cluster of 100 stars, which is like a closed circle. In the cosmos, it's like a closed circle. So, and it is well known that under Shatabhishek, there are mysterious healings and mysterious diseases for which no cause can be really attributed. So suddenly somebody is extremely unwell and miraculously becomes well. A serious cancer suddenly goes into remission and permanently disappears. Such cases are known. Or somebody who is perfectly normal, as if and there was no inkling of any disease or any dysfunction, and suddenly gets afflicted with a life-threatening disease. So this is a kind of thing which is more like the news in a sense. So, or the binding law, if you remember my earlier discussion some time ago. So Shatabhishek therefore is in, and it is in Aquarius. The planetary lord, however, is Rahu, but all the more Rahu makes sense here because Rahu means that this nakshatra is connected with the karmic axis, and the karmic axis is necessary to deliver the karma of the nakshatra in a sense through the nakshatra vibrations, which and the nakshatra devata of Shatabhishek is Varuna. Correct. So this is one explanation, or this is my understanding of how Varuna affects uh, Aquarius here. Now let's, if you go a little ahead, if you go beyond now Shatabhishek and go to the next nakshatra, which is Purva Bhadrapada. Okay, I want to discuss another thing here, which is the aspect of, when you look at Varuna, we should not look at only at the human life. We should not look at only the individual human life. It is more almost like a collective phenomenon, because these are the outer planets and they will affect humanity at large. And what is this telling us really about the nature of humanity and how and where we came from? There are many secrets hidden in the nakshatras or the stars, and uh, it is said that we are but stardust scattered on the surface of a planet in the Milky Way. So we owe our origins to the stars in a way. Yes, but then we also heard this, right? That life started on Earth in water. Before life started, there was only surface of the Earth 70 to 80% was covered with water, and life started in the form of simple unicellular organisms in water, right? So then, how do we really reconcile this, and do we see a Varuna connection in this sense? Now, if you see the next nakshatra after Shatabhishek, it is Purva Bhadrapada. Now, Purva Bhadrapada nakshatra, the nakshatra, the planetary lord is Jupiter, sure, but the nakshatra deity, the devata, the Vedic devata is Aja Ekapada, which is a dancing form of Shiva. Okay, so it's the agitation in the cosmos, it's the cosmic agitation, it's the dancing form of Shiva, which is the, Shiva with his trident. Or okay, and then after that, the next nakshatra you find is Uttara Bhadrapada, and here suddenly from the dancing Shiva you come to the Vedic devata, which is Ahirbudnya. Ahirbudnya, what is Ahirbudnya? Ahirbudnya is the cosmic serpent. It is the serpent in the cosmic seas. Ahi. Ahi means serpent, Sarpa, large Sarpa. And Budnya is basically the whole, you can say it is the ocean of milk, it is the cosmic waters. Now, you have these two the nakshatras juxtaposed. You have the devata here, firstly, which was Aja Ekapada, the dancing Shiva. Okay, a sort of an expression of unleashing of energy. And then you have Ahirbudnya, which is the cosmic serpent which is arising from below. Now, the serpent, has been traditionally, in many traditions, it refers to the life force, the Kundalini. So you find here something strange happening. You have here a, a multi-pronged phenomenon wherein life is being sort of churned in the oceans, whether it started in the stars, whether it is reflected, you know, from into the cosmic oceans, whether the oceans are on Earth or whether we are referring to the cosmic waters, you know, we do not know. But basically, therefore, Varuna, and you see the next nakshatra is Pushan, the last nakshatra, which is, sorry, the nakshatra is Revati, the nakshatra Devata is Pushan, and in Pushan again you find Pushan is Aditya, so like Aryaman, like different, like Bhaga, so here you find that things are again sort of nurturing and growing. Okay, and typically 6 degrees of Pisces is the sidereal, where Sun enters Aries. 6 degrees of Pisces in the tropical Western astrology is when Sun actually enters Aries in the sidereal astrology. So that is also the time when spring begins. That is when life really begins. So you find here, right from Makar onwards, almost till the end of Meen Rashi, it's very interesting phenomenon being of which Varun seems to be a very inextricable part. Okay, so this was my understanding of what is happening there in this in the nakshatra part. Now I want to end up this part by looking at the symbolism. Now in Western astrology, planets are usually depicted as symbols, as are also zodiac signs. Okay, so and sometimes the picture speaks much more than a phrase of words, right? So we are going to be looking at the symbol of Neptune, and we are looking at the other symbols also of other planets, and see how we can correlate. Okay. But just before we go to the symbols, this is basically what we have been speaking about. I already spoke about the Jupiterian and Venusian energies. We spoke about nakshatras of Pisces, which is a quite an interesting thing. And so you find the genesis happening in the Purva Bhadrapada, Uttara Bhadrapada, and the preservation and the destruction happening with the next. Because after Pushan comes, remember Ashwini, part of Mesh, Ashwini, Bharani. Now Ashwini Kumars are again with the nakshatra Swami Ketu and the nakshatra Devata Ashwini Kumars. You find salvation, so healing by liberating, because Ketu is Moksha Karaka and Ashwini Kumars are healers. So you have a different kind of a healing here, um, and so therefore that also is necessary when a new cycle begins. So and then Bharani, the next nakshatra is Bharani, again in Mesh, and the nakshatra Devata here is Yama. Now, incidentally, Yama is also the Hades in Western astrology. So we are talking of Pluto here. So in a sense, the nakshatra Devata could be thought of as Pluto if one were to look at a integrative understanding. Okay, so that's the destruction element. So you have the creation, preservation, and destruction sort of worked out from Capricorn right through Aries, and then you come to the nakshatra um, Krittika. Now, Krittika was the original first nakshatra, you know, uh, till the Shatapatha Brahmana. So, there is a scriptural text called the Shatapatha Brahmana, which was written around 2000 BC. Okay, so just to give you an understanding of the timelines, um, the Bruhat Parashar Hora Shastra was written about 3500 to 4000 years before Christ. So that means about, let's say, typically 6000 years from today ago, 6000 years ago. And the Shatapatha Brahmana was written about 4000 years ago, and in which the nakshatras are first described in detail. And the nakshatra mandala starts with sun. So it is Sun, Moon, so on and so forth. Okay, so Sun, Moon, Mars, Rahu, Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, that way. Okay, so and then of course later on it was rejigged and then we started at Ashwini. It really doesn't matter fundamentally whether you start at Ashwini and end at Revati, or you start at um, Kritika and end at Bharani. Okay, so now coming to the next slide, which is what we initially started with, which was the planetary symbol slide. Now here you see in front of you on the left side the symbol of Neptune. Okay, and then we see Venus, Jupiter, Mercury, Pluto, and Uranus, all symbols on next to it. Let's first analyze the symbol of Neptune. Now it's a trident here. Now the trident has many aspects. The trident is facing upward. So these are energies which are facing upward. These are this is like a connection to up there. Up there, as in down here is earth or the material plane. Up there is the spiritual plane. This is the Trinity. The Trishul or the trident is composed of three parts or three blades, as it were. So it's the Trinity. The Trinity can be looked upon in various ways. It can be looked upon like creation, preservation, destruction Trinity. It can be looked upon like like the sun, moon, and the ascendant in the chart. It is the fundamental, you can say, troika of existence. Okay, so that is the Trinity. It's open. It's open up there, and below is the cross. Now the cross basically is like the is that is the plane, that is where the energies from above intersect and get anchored to the energy from below, or the human or the material plane. Okay, so this is basically Neptune, and now um, if you look at the symbol of Venus. Now remember, Neptune is also looked upon as a higher octave of Venus. Now in Venus you see the same cross below, okay, and you see the the circle above. The circle above is basically is a closed circle. This is the material plane. It is Earth. Okay, so Earth is also represented as a closed circle. Okay, so this is the closed circle. This is the material plane. You have below that the cross, which indicates, as I said, the intersection of with the material plane, and also the feminine aspect. The cross is the feminine aspect. This is the symbol of Venus is the same symbol as the symbol of a woman. When you write a woman, you use this symbol to depict a woman. Okay, so now if you notice, what is the difference between Venus and Neptune? The basic important difference is that in Neptune the symbol is open to the sky. It's open to the vibrations above. It is influenced from above. In Venus it is closed. Okay, so in a sense, the higher octave of Venus exalted in Pisces, remember again, and Neptune's own house is Pisces. So you see the connection between what Venus could become, the potentiality of Venus when you look at the symbol of Neptune. Now let's focus our attention on the next symbol, which is Jupiter. Now if you see here Jupiter, there is a like a figure of two on the left side, and then there is like a cross again on the right side, or at the same level. Now this indicates the level of the cross is the level of the material plane, and the symbol on the left is like a expansion. It's like a wave, which is a growing wave. So this is the expansionary sort of quality of Jupiter at the level of the material plane. So Jupiter expands. Jupiter, will increase the weight of. Jupiter will add weight too. So in a sense, it is, but it is also open. Remember, it is not closed like Venus. So it is open. So if this symbol were to just slightly change its orientation and maybe move clockwise, just say 90 degrees, you will find that it is open to the sky in a way. So in a sense that again Jupiter has the expansionary material aspect, but it is connected to the ether. Remember the element ether in the Panchamahabhutas, in the five elements, the element ether is under the control or lordship of Jupiter. Okay, so that you see this here and the connection with Neptune. The next symbol here is the symbol of Mercury. Now Mercury is like Venus, and then on top of it, then there are two wings, or it's almost like a arc of a circle which is intersecting, a partial arc, or they could be like small wings on each side of the head. So it's this is more, you see the energy, you see the locomotory aspect of this symbol. It is Venus in motion in a sense. It is trying to communicate. Mercury is like the messenger of the gods. It is quicksilver. It wants to communicate. It is connecting with different planets. It will take on the quality of the planet in which with which it is associated. Again, it has the aspect of communicating upwards. Therefore, as I said earlier, some researchers think that Neptune is also a higher octave of Mercury, like Neptune is a higher octave of Venus. So, and Mercury is also connected to the nervous system. So, look here, one circle interfacing with another circle or part of a circle is like a neural connection. It is connecting. These are like synapses. So, it also I think this symbol is also indicative of the nature of Mercury. Okay. Of course, below is the cross, which indicates that it is connected and anchored to the earthly plane. Now, the next symbol is that of Pluto. Now, if you notice, there are very interesting similarities between Pluto and Neptune, and there are some naturally there are differences. Now, the similarity is that the Pluto symbol is like a cup, is like a cup in which there is something, there is a ball. Now the cup is a cup. It is open to the sky, so it is like a gift from the sky. It is giving to the sky. It is receiving from the sky. So it's a symbol open to the universe, like the Neptune symbol. This is a typical characteristic of all outermost planets. You'll find a symbol open to the sky, and it is also in a sense giving birth, maybe. And it's the it is a cup shaped kind of a figure, which is like a womb also. So it is also it's in a sense clearing the womb and re-impregnating the womb, as it were. So it's the lord of the underworld. Pluto is also has been referred to as Hades in Greek mythology, and Pluto or Yama in Hindu or Vedic parlance. So this is Pluto, and you see the connection between Pluto and Neptune is kind of clear. You know, Pluto is clearly concerned with destruction. Now, then you have Uranus here. Okay, now the last symbol is Uranus. Now, Uranus, you notice, again is a symbol which is sort of open to the sky, but it is, you find here that the earth is below, and it's like a grid on top of the earth kind of a feeling. It's like a grid kind of a feeling. There is a cross in the center, and there are almost like antennas on, almost like receiving kind of radars on both sides. One almost feels like this is some kind of a grid. And no wonder, because Uranus is concerned with telecommunication to a great extent. So you see these similarities about the symbol. The one thing I would like to quickly mention here is that Neptune takes typically about 14 years to cross one zodiac sign. Pluto will take 21 years on an average to cross a zodiac sign, and Uranus will take 7 years. So among these planets, the planet which has got more relevance to human life on a day-to-day basis among the three outermost planets would be Uranus, because it takes lesser time, because 12 sevens are 84, so you can have a full Uranus cycle in a lifetime. But in case of Neptune and in case of Pluto, the full zodiac cycle is not possible. Correct? So this is something I just wanted to mention. Now, with this background, let me go to the next slide. I want to basically now talk about the medical astrology facets or aspects of Neptune or Varuna. Now, it's fascinating to understand, and I think this is where the application part of the understanding of the astrology of Neptune and Varuna really matters. Okay, because you find a lot of patients in which this planet is creating symptoms. Particularly now, because in the new age, we are more and more exposed and more sensitive to higher vibrations. Okay. Now, coming back to this aspect, now let me just tell you that the medical astrology influence of Neptune is related to its core nature. So let us understand the core nature once again and then quickly relate it to the medical astrology part. Number one, we will have symptoms or issues or conditions connected to the water element. Now, water element here would mean mind, would mean moon, would mean brain, would mean a lot of things. So, we are going to talk of that. So, that is one aspect, very important aspect of the medical astrology of Varuna. Also, remember, Varuna is a primordial sort of deity. It's a Rig deity. Should we call it a Deva? Should, perhaps not. Should we call it Asura? Perhaps not. But it is almost Adya Devata. It is precedes the Deva Asura dichotomy. It's a Rigvedic primordial deity. So therefore it will have very powerful effects. Some of them could be difficult for human beings to digest. Correct? So it is like the will of the gods. It's like a higher mind which is deciding who should live, who should not live. So certain accidental deaths, things like that would be, you know, uh, unexplainable diseases, sudden occurrences, sometimes some sudden occurrences would be under the the control of Neptune. In a sense, remember the noose analogy and the binding analogy. It's a noose. It will, so therefore, I would say on the whole, the effects of Neptune in medical astrology, about 60% would be perhaps more on the negative side, so 40% would be on the positive side. And this is not because of the inherent problem with Neptune. The problem is our inability to synchronize and harmonize with the higher vibrations that Neptune represents. Now, with this background, let us see the slide here to go into more detail. So, there are certain psychic and spiritual abilities which Neptune governs. So, anybody who is a clairvoyant, anybody who is a medium, anybody who is a lot into spiritual work, metaphysical work, would have a very powerful Neptune because it also shows positive, very um, effective intuition. Okay. Now, on the other side, the negative side is that if somebody has got some chronic addictions to narcotics or drugs or alcohol, or somebody is prone to some sort of possessions. There are some mental illnesses which are difficult to diagnose. Traditional medicine will call it schizophrenia. And again with schizophrenia, sometimes even drugs don't cure the schizophrenia, and then the Christian church could call them possessions, and for that exorcism is sometimes rarely practiced to remove or to take away these spirit possessions. So these kind of things also could be um, under the influence of Varuna. Okay, so this is one aspect. Then this influences will get modified with different planetary associations. So if it is Venus, and if you have a Venus Neptune combined effect, if it is positive, it will create enormous artists, people with prodigious talent, intuition, mystics, poets, things like that. If it is, if it is on the negative side, it could mean somebody who is into sexual perversions, into some sort of cultism. If it is Jupiter, again you have, if it is positive, then you have somebody who is very religious, very moral, very almost like a religious visionary. But if it is negative, then you could have fanatics, you could have the Inquisition. Maybe one of the Christian church was at some point of time perhaps badly afflicted with Neptune. you know and then if you have the association with moon, again, as I said, it can give you some special abilities mentally speaking, or it can create some major mental illness. If with Rahu and Ketu, it will actually start manifesting. Okay, um, so then there is another important association of Neptune. Neptune in the body represents the pineal gland. Now, the pineal gland is actually a physical correlate of the crown chakra, the Sahasrara chakra. So, we have the yogic chakras, which we will not be talking about in detail now, but the Sahasrara or the crown chakra, the physical direct correlate of that is the pineal gland. Okay, so um, so therefore the pineal and the other chakra, which is the Ajna chakra, which is in the center of the forehead, between the two eyes, so that is the pituitary gland. So pituitary gland is different, pineal gland is different. Okay, it will perhaps not be possible for me to give you the detailed anatomy of where these are located, but the pineal gland is, you can imagine, located in the center of the brain, and it is in the apex or the roof of an area which is called the third ventricle. So you have inside the brain, you have the different hemispheres of the brain. You have the cerebral hemispheres, you have the smaller brain, the cerebellum below. Now each of these brain, they have cavities inside which are called ventricles, and there is also a central cavity in the brain called the third ventricle. And through these ventricles flows a fluid called the cerebrospinal fluid, and this fluid actually completely bathes, in a sense, it has got the um, it will nourish the brain tissue. Okay, and then this cavity or this fluid also goes in the spinal cord. Now this entire system of the cerebrospinal fluid is all basically part of the Neptune or the Venus, sorry, of the or the Varuna um, lordship, in a sense. Okay, and the pineal gland, which is the crown chakra, is it is directly open the to the influence or to the grace from above. So any initiation, anything, any spiritual initiation happening will happen through the pineal gland. It's also the culmination of the kundalini. So if the kundalini energy starts from the base of the spine, the culmination point, or the point where it all comes together, is the pineal gland, and the area just above the pineal gland. Okay, so that's the point of enlightenment. That's the point of spiritual enlightenment also. And this pineal gland is basically under the control of Neptune. And pineal gland secretes a hormone called melatonin, which is responsible for sleep cycles. So often you find if somebody has got a very afflicted Neptune, his sleep will be fired. He won't be sleeping well. Correct? The pituitary gland on the other hand, is controlled by the Uranus. Okay, so we will not be speaking about the pituitary today, but just keep in mind that there is a pineal and pituitary coordination in medicine. So there is a pineal and pituitary gland, both are having nervous internal neurological connections with each other, and they are also connected in the third ventricle. Both of them are in the third ventricle. So you have a collaboration of Neptune and Uranus happening in any case inside the human body, but that is maybe a topic for another lecture. uh, Again, if you remember the original root word of Neptune, nabha, nabhas, nebulous. So anything which is nebulous. So eyes, eyesight also forms under the adhipatya of Neptune. Remember, eyesight is also one of the karakas for good eyesight is Venus. So again, you see the Venus Neptune connection here. Uh, as I said earlier, Neptune represents the will of God. So sudden unexplained deaths, heart stopping for no reason, a mysterious disease, all that forms is a part of Neptune. Remember Shatabhishak Nakshatra we discussed some time ago for diseases or healings of unknown origin. Now there is one particular organ in the gastrointestinal tract or in the digestive system, which which empirically has been found to be connected with Neptune dysfunction in the horoscope, and that organ is appendix. Now appendix is a vestigial organ, which means it has no known function other than the fact that it contains a lot of lymphatic follicles. It is full of lymphatic follicles. So this appendix is connected with Neptune. And remember, lymphatic system is also under the control of the zodiac sign Pisces. So you may be seeing a connection of Neptune here through that route. Okay, the mineral potassium is also basically controlled by Neptune, and the color indigo and blue. Okay, so this is a brief a description of what Neptune can do, and the medical astrological aspects of Neptune. I hope you liked my talk. I think I have covered a lot of ground, um, and more understanding of the outer planets will only enrich our understanding of the ultimate destiny of the human race. Thank you so much for your interest. If you like, please share and subscribe. Thank you so much.